안녕하세요. My name is Michelle Zauner, author of Crying in H Mart, and today we're going to make Dotorimuk Muchim Acorn Jelly salad. First, you're going to cook the dotorimuk by combining dotorimuk garu, the acorn starch, with water, sesame oil, and salt. So then I cook it for about 10 minutes over medium-high heat. So over time it will thicken and it will go from this kind of milky coffee color to like a dark brown caramel. You can see the consistency change over time. It's gotten like very thick and caramel-like. So after cooking it for 10 minutes, it's thickened. I'm gonna add the lid and let it steam for an additional 5 minutes. So after letting it sit for 5 minutes covered, you're going to move it into a glass container. And then you leave it on the counter to cool for 20 minutes, put the lid on, and put it in the fridge overnight. Because you put the chunk, you didn't fell right off. Usually it takes a little coming out. Now let's cut it into bite-sized pieces. And now you have a savory little square of acorn jello. Now we're going to make the dressing. Add soy sauce, sesame oil, kimchi brine, minced garlic, rice vinegar, gochugaru, sugar, sesame seeds. Mix it really well, and then you're going to add your salad ingredients and the dotorimuk. You can use whatever vegetables you like, but I really like to use red leaf lettuce, scallions, cucumber, and pechu kimchi. I like to make sure that the kimchi is really sour. Then we're going to add the dotorimuk, and then mix it. If you want to add other vegetables, you can add carrots or radishes or onion or Korean vegetables like chrysanthemum leaves or perla leaf. Honestly, everything will taste really great with this dressing and with the acorn jelly. And then we put it onto a plate and garnish it with some seaweed. And that's Dotorimuk Muchim. Perfect for a summer salad for lunch or a banchan on the side for kalbi and samgyeopsal. And now we're gonna do a Q&A mukbang. Let's eat! 먹자! The texture of dotorimuk is very hard to explain. It's a real struggle and adventure to try to get the muk between your chopsticks. I really like the combination of the kimchi and dotorimuk together. That was the big realization when I had this dish for the first time of what a good combination it was and how it's not like too common. It was the first time that I had this combination and wanted to share it with more people. I love this dish because there's a lot of different textures. It's really crunchy, but it's also really soft and jello-y because of the muk. It's salty, nutty, tart, a little bit spicy, a little bit sweet. So now we're going to answer some questions while enjoying my dotorimuk. The first question is by MJ App. Do you love H Mart more than me? LOL. Probably. That's the answer. Guilty pleasure buys from H Mart. Do you browse the houseware section? The houseware section is one of my favorite sections of H Mart. I particularly like the small metal pots that are good for ramen because they heat up really quickly. And so I'll use them to make ramen or I'll use them to boil water really quickly to poach eggs. I also really like my metal makgeolli tin cups. So H Mart houseware section is probably major guilty pleasure. I also really like the little milk candies, and yangparing is definitely a guilty pleasure. And samyang fire noodles. I try not to eat them because they make my stomach hurt a lot, but they're very delicious. I like the carbonara flavor. Does your dad know how to order Korean food? My dad is white American man, but he was married to a Korean woman for almost 30 years, and so he knows a lot of Korean foods. He also lived in Seoul for at least three to 5 years, so he definitely knows how to order 맥주. 맥주 주세요 is definitely a big phrase that my dad knows, maybe one of 5, and he really likes altung, weirdly. So altung is one of his favorite things to order. Nihausjo says, first, I loved your book so much. Thank you, Nihausjo. 2, what can't you leave H Mart without? 총각 kimchi. I always get 총각 kimchi and 묵은 kimchi for cooking and eating. And I usually always buy samgyeopsal. I also really like Kewpie mayonnaise. Kewpie mayonnaise is a must-have. And if I'm feeling really decadent and fancy, I will splurge on ojingo. I love roasting ojingo and eating it with Kewpie mayonnaise mixed with gochujang and peanuts and light beer. Old man, ajushi late night snack. Oh, which brand of Korean beer is your favorite? I like Cloud, I think. Cloud seems like the most legit Korean beer. I think it's a light beer, but it's got some weight to it. Why would you cry in H Mart with all the amazing food in stock? Memories, man, memories. Why did you pick that title? I knew the title of the book for a really long time. Maybe the second Christmas I spent without my mother, I went to the Elkins Park food cart and was just watching people and feeling really emotional. And I thought it was such a funny but true title because every time I see something that reminds me of my mom, it hits me really hard, and I cry in H Mart. I still cry in H Mart, so it felt like something that perfectly captured what the book was about. What part of writing the book made you the hungriest? I think either writing about kanjang-gaejang, and my favorite memory is going to my halmoni's apartment in Seoul, and every night when my mom and I were really jet lagged, we would go and raid halmoni's refrigerator at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, eat all these different types of banchan, and talking about the way that kanjang-gaejang kind of like squirts out of its shell made me really hungry. And also eating Korean fried chicken with my aunt. I felt like I was really able to capture the gushing of hot oil from the skin of hot chicken, and that made me really hungry. What is the book about? The book is about grief and loss. It's a mother and daughter story. It's about being first-generation American and learning how complicated a relationship with an immigrant parent can be. It's about using Korean food and learning how to cook Korean dishes as a way to grieve. What does your aunt and cousin in Korea think of it? I don't think that they've read it yet. They're working on a Korean translation. Munhak Dongmin in Korea are going to be publishing it probably next year, and I'll learn what they think of it then. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but I think that they'll like it. I know my aunt is very proud of me, and she saw that the book had been optioned for a feature and shared a Korean article with me, and so I think that she's very excited for me. Will you be writing another book? I think so. I learned so much from writing this book that I think that I would love to write another one, hopefully soon, but in a little, it'll take a minute with it. I really want to write a book about the Korean language and my struggles to learn the Korean language, and ultimately I would like to live in Seoul for a year and document the process of learning the language and what it's like to kind of come into language sort of later on in life and finally commit to living in a place and learning it. What is one thing your mom told you that is most precious to you? My mom said something that's a sort of some advice that's in the book, which is save 10% of yourself. That's something that I'll never forget. That is definitely something that my halmoni said to my mom passed down to me, and is something I will probably pass down to my children. And I think it's such a immigrant mentality, but it also really prepares you for the world. It's not to trust anyone completely and always save a part of yourself, never give everything away. Did you experience any writer's block? If so, how did you manage it? Definitely experienced a lot of writer's block, but I think the best thing that you can do is just continue to write every day. And that's it. How many times did you cry while writing this? I cried maybe 100 times. I cried so much writing this book, but it was very healing ultimately to write this book and let it go in this way. Would non-Koreans understand or relate to this book? I think so. I think there are a lot of people who have been able to relate to this book if you've lost a parent or really anyone in your life, if you've experienced grief, if you have a tumultuous relationship with your parent, if there is a sort of divide between you and your parent who's an immigrant and cultural differences. I hope that everyone can enjoy this book and that there's something in there for everyone. If you're a food lover, if you're more interested in Korean culture, yeah, there's something in it for everyone. What's your top 3 Korean comfort food? Number 1 has to be kimchi jjigae. Number 2, probably jjajangmyeon. Number 3 is maybe a little bit tough. I guess like galbisam. Who do you hope to inspire in this book? I hope that I inspire more Asian American people to embrace their creativity and sort of courageously go in a direction that may have been discouraged from them. I think now more than ever we're getting a lot of really wonderful different stories from multidimensional characters and authors, and I think that that's really important and exciting, and I hope to be just one of many in a pool of really wonderful stories about that experience. What made you want to make the book? There was really just a sense of urgency to share my story, or maybe it wasn't even to share my story, but it was this desire to remember my mother before she got sick and to kind of relive my childhood experiences and the joys of eating with my mother, and to also explain what happened during this really difficult part of my life and share that with other people and learn from it. What was your favorite memory to write about? I think one of my favorite memories is just all of the times that I went to Korea with and got to spend time with my family. I really love my mother's family in Seoul, and so much of my childhood, a really happy part of my childhood was the moments in growing up and going to that apartment in Gangnam. And I also love to write about my childhood in Eugene, Oregon. It was such a beautiful place to grow up and full of nature, and yeah, it was just a really wonderful thing to get to revisit my childhood through writing. Thank you so much for watching my Dotorimuk Muchim mukbang and for asking me some great questions. I really love this dish. I think it's great for the summer. It's super light and refreshing and goes great with a cold glass of shikhae. I hope you'll check out my book, Crying in H Mart.